Hello, my name is Andrew Perazzo, and I'm here to introduce my game, Lab Mice.
In this game, you and the other players are all competing scientists who are striving to be the most prestigious scientist in your lab. Throughout the course of the game, you will breed mice, many with special abilities and powers, interact with and even attack other players, and collect equipment and grants to help you in your goal. The winner of the game is the player with the most points when one of the decks runs out. Mice cards give you points. The more powerful mice are worth the fewest number of points, and the least powerful mice are worth the greatest number of points. You also get bonus points at the end of the game for grants you've collected, as well as for certain card combinations your mice create at the end of the game. Let's take a look at how the game is laid out. Every scientist starts with 4 mice that total 7 points, of which 2 are male and 2 are female, of their choice. They also start with 2 equipment cards, both of which are determined gender, and a turn order marker, along with their mice, of the male and female. They get a double-sided powers cheat sheet. In the center of the table are the 8 available mice, with a mouse cue, and 4 available grants. The blink mouse deck and the equipment deck are also laid nearby, along with gene tiles, power tiles, age 3 tiles, and the gender die. Large mouse tiles of male and female are also nearby. Every mouse will have exactly 4 genes. These can be the healthy gene, the strong gene, the adaptive gene, the intelligent gene, the speedy gene, and the fertile gene. A player's turn consists of 4 steps. Step 1 is to draw an equipment card. Step 2 is to use equipment and/or mouse powers. Step 3 is to breed mice, and Step 4 is to take a grant card, if you qualify.
Let's play a sample round to see how these 4 steps, and the game in general, work.
It's Scientist 1's turn. The first thing she does is draw the top card off the equipment deck. In Step 2, she can use any of these equipment cards and up to 2 unique mouse powers she has. She decides not to use any of her equipment cards, but does decide to use this warrior mouse power. To signify that a power has been used, simply cover it up using this bar. In this case, the warrior mouse power attacks another mouse. This is shown by simply flipping over the large mouse tile above it. Scientist 1 decides not to use any more mouse powers, and so moves on to Step 3, breed mice. There are 2 types of breeding, a controlled breed and experimental breed. In this case, Scientist 1 decides to do a controlled breed. She chooses 2 genes from a female mouse, in this case the healthy gene and the adaptive gene, and 2 genes from the male mouse, in this case the healthy gene and the speedy gene. Because these 4 genes match the DNA of one of the 8 available mice, Scientist 1 can take this mouse and then put it in front of her. Scientist 1 then flips over the large mouse tiles of the parents that bred this turn. She then rolls the gender die to determine the gender of the new baby mouse. In this case, it's a girl, so she grabs a large female mouse tile to put over the card. The cue then replenishes, like so, moving that there, moving this down there, replenishing that. Step 4 is to take a grant, but you can only take a grant that is associated with a mouse you bred that turn. Scientist 1 got a healthy athletic female mouse, so she'd be able to get either the athletic or the female grant. There's no healthy grant available. She decides to get the athletic grant because it's worth more points than the female grant. All grant cards, deceased mice, and all equipment cards used go to your discard pile. After getting the grant, she replenishes the 4 available grants from the top of the grant deck. Scientist 2 now goes. He draws an equipment card from the deck to start his turn. He really wants that intelligent mouse out there. However, the genes in his current mice don't quite work for that. In order to get the mouse he wants, he's going to have to use this equipment card he drew this turn, which changes an AT to a GC the same color. To use the equipment card, he simply places it in his discard. Notice that this card will give him 1 GMO. At the end of the game, every 2 GMO gives you -1 point. He now changes an AT gene into a GC gene of the same color, changing a strong gene into an intelligent gene. Looking at our powers cheat sheet, we see that any mouse with both an intelligent gene and a strong gene has a warrior power. In order to show that this mouse now has that warrior power, we place a warrior power bar onto that mouse card. Scientist 2 is now going to use this mouse power, radioactive mouse power. This power is to spontaneously change its own genetic structure. Scientist 2 uses it to change one of its adaptive genes into a healthy gene. And to show that this power has been used, we cover it up using this bar. We once again look to see what powers, if any, are affected. And in fact, they are. This mouse develops the robust power. So, Scientist 2 go ahead and grabs a robust power bar and places it on top of that mouse card. Scientist 2 now moves on to step 3, which is breed. Because of the new change of these mice's genetic structures, he is actually able to take this healthy gene and this intelligent gene, and this intelligent gene and the speedy gene to create the intelligent mouse he was looking at earlier. He places it in front of him and then rolls the gender die to see if it will be a male or a female. In this case, it's going to be a male. So we place a large male mouse tile here, replenish the available mice like so, and of course, the two parents' large mice tiles get flipped. Now, because Scientist 2 created an intelligent mouse, he grabs the intelligent grant, putting it into his discard, and replenishes the 4 available grants. It is now Scientist 3's turn. He starts by drawing an equipment card, adding it into his hand. He then decides to use a mouse power, in this case this warrior mouse power. He's going to attack one of Scientist 2's mice, flipping it over like this, and then covering up the mouse power like so. Scientist 3 doesn't really see any mice out there in the 8 available mice he wants, so instead of doing a controlled breed, Scientist 3 is going to do an experimental breed. To do an experimental breed, he simply chooses 2 mice that he wants to breed. In this case, he's going to pick this male mouse here, this warrior mouse, and this female mouse here, this radioactive mouse. They were picked due to their genetic codes. To do an experimental breed, simply grab 1 tile per gene in the mouse for the mother and for the father. Then flip them over and shuffle up those tiles randomly for the mom and for the dad, like this. You then select 2 genes from the mother and 2 genes from the father. These are going to be the genes of the new baby mouse. We're going to put these back right there and grab a blank mouse card to put these 4 tiles onto. Now we're going to look to see if this has any powers, and in fact it does. It has 3 powers. It has the healthy and fertile gene for the robust power, the healthy and strong gene for the armor power, and the intelligent and the strong gene for the warrior power. So we're going to grab a bar for each of these and place them on top of this mouse. Notice that while this mouse is only worth 1 point, it has 3 powers, making it by far the most powerful mouse on the table so far. So, Scientist 3's experimental breeding gamble has paid off. Scientist 3 rolls the die to determine the gender of the baby mouse, female, and flips over the mouse tiles of the 2 parents. Because this one was already on its 2 side, it actually dies, placing it into the discard pile and getting rid of any tiles. During step 4 of this turn, notice that this mouse is an armored mouse, even though it is a blank mouse card, but he is still able to take the armored grant, replacing it from the top of the grant deck. And there we have it, 1 full round of lab mice. Play then continues until one of the decks runs out, like this one just did. Players then take all mice they have in front of them and put them into their discard pile. Players score the base points number of all the mouse cards they've accumulated throughout the game. Players get 3 bonus points for every set of 3 the same trait their mouse have, such as this, and get 6 points for 6 different traits they have, such as this. The same thing happens with powers. Each set of 3 the same power gives 3 points, and each set of 6 different powers gets 6 points. Blank mice sadly don't take part in bonus points. Every 2 GMO a player has gives them -1 point. Then, players get points for any grants they've collected, plus they score points for their turn order marker. 1 point for first player and so forth. The winner of the game is the scientist with the most points at the end.
There we are. I hope that this video explaining lab mice has been instructive, and I hope to hear from you again soon.